The annual gala at Hawthorne Ridge Club was in full swing when my mother raised her champagne flute, her smile sharp as crystal. Still single at 36, the room erupted in knowing laughter. I pressed my fingers against the wedding ring hidden in my dress pocket, the one I'd been too exhausted to wear after years of her poisonous remarks. Behind her, the projector hummed to life for the tribute video honoring our club president, but she had no idea what was really on that USB drive. Tonight, I was rewriting the script. My name is Aaron Walker, and I learned early that love in the Prescott household came with conditions written in fine print. Growing up in Westchester's manicured suburbs, I existed as an extension of my mother's ambitions. Valerie Prescott didn't just run the Hawthorne Ridge Club, she orchestrated lives like a conductor demanding perfect pitch. Our colonial home on Maple Avenue looked pristine from the outside white columns, heritage roses, a circular driveway that whispered old money. Inside, every room held invisible tripwires of expectation. "The Whitmore girl got engaged last week," Mother would announce over breakfast, slicing grapefruit with surgical precision. "Princeton graduate, marrying into the Ashford family. But here you are, reading those photography magazines again." Photography had been my first rebellion and my first defeat. I'd saved babysitting money for a vintage Leica, spent hours capturing light through leaves, shadows on brick walls, the unguarded moments when people forgot to perform. Mother found my portfolio hidden under my bed and burned it in the backyard fire pit while I watched from my bedroom window. Artists starve. Aaron, we're not starving people. My father, Gerald, existed in the margins of our lives, a gentle man who'd learned that peace meant silence. He'd squeeze my shoulder when Mother launched into her daily comparisons, but never spoke up. The heart attack took him when I was 23, quick and quiet, the way he'd lived. At his funeral, Mother straightened my black dress and whispered, "Stop crying. The Vanderhilts are watching." After Dad died, Mother's grip tightened like a tourniquet. She produced a literal timeline for my life, laminated and posted on the refrigerator: MBA by 25, director-level position by 30, married to someone from her pre-approved list by 32, first child by 34. The men she paraded through our living room all had the same resume: Ivy League, trust funds, the personality of expensive wallpaper. "You're pretty enough," she'd assess, circling me like a buyer at an auction. "But pretty fades. You need to lock someone down before 35. After that, you're just leftovers at the buffet." I developed a survival skill reading the room before entering, adjusting my personality like dimming lights. The competent daughter at charity galas, the ambitious professional at club luncheons, the grateful child who never mentioned that her trust fund came with strings attached. Mother controlled every penny until I married appropriately or turned 40, whichever came first. By 33, I'd perfected the art of being whoever Valerie Prescott needed me to be. But somewhere between the performances, I'd lost track of who Aaron Walker actually was. The woman in my mirror had my face but moved like a marionette, each gesture calculated to avoid disappointing the puppeteer. The breaking point came during another orchestrated dinner party. Mother had invited Harrison Blackwell III, a hedge fund prince with cocaine residue perpetually dusting his law degree. When he grabbed my thigh under the table while Mother discussed wedding venues, something inside me finally snapped, not dramatically, but with the quiet certainty of ice forming over water. That night, I sat in my childhood bedroom, surrounded by the degrees and achievements that were supposed to equal happiness. The moonlight caught my father's watch on my dresser, the only thing of his mother hadn't donated for the tax write-off. I wound it carefully, listening to its steady tick, and made a decision. I needed to disappear. Not forever, just long enough to remember how to breathe without asking permission. Denver had an opening for a communications director at a tech firm, far enough that Mother couldn't drop by unannounced, close enough that I couldn't be accused of abandoning family. Denver. Mother's voice could have frozen hell. What's in Denver besides marijuana and fleece vests? A good opportunity, I replied, already packing boxes in my mind. Opportunity. She tested the word like suspicious wine. You mean running away? Just like your father's sister moved to Seattle, married some carpenter, died broke. But I was already gone, mentally calculating the miles between her expectations and my first breath of mountain air. What I didn't know then was that Denver wouldn't just give me space to breathe, it would give me Mateo, and with him, a love worth fighting for. Even if that fight meant returning to this suffocating room 3 years later, wedding ring hidden in my pocket, waiting for the perfect moment to detonate the truth beneath Mother's carefully constructed empire of appearances. Denver hit different in March thin air that made my lungs work harder, mountains that didn't care about pedigree, and a sky so wide it made Westchester feel like living inside a jewelry box. I'd taken the position at Northline Analytics, a mid-sized tech firm specializing in predictive modeling, where my biggest qualification was that I genuinely understood what they did. My apartment in Capitol Hill had exposed brick and original hardwood floors that creaked with honesty. No marble countertops, no interior designer's touch, just windows that opened to actual air, and neighbors who introduced themselves without checking my LinkedIn first. I met Mateo at a coffee shop called Margin Walker, 3 blocks from my apartment. I was wrestling with my ancient Leica, the one I'd bought to replace what Mother had burned when it jammed. Need help. His voice carried the kind of calm that comes from running into burning buildings for a living. Mateo Alvarez stood there in Denver Fire Department paramedic gear, fresh off a shift, smelling faintly of smoke and sanitizer. Not handsome in the calculated way of Mother's selections, his nose had been broken at least once, and his hands showed actual work, but his eyes, dark and steady, looked at me like I was already enough. It's vintage, I explained, defensive about my impractical camera. So's my truck. Doesn't mean I love it less. He fixed the jam with practiced patience, explaining each step. You photograph professionally, just for myself. The truth felt strange in my mouth. I'm in communications, but photography's what I actually love. Then that's what you are, a photographer who pays bills with communication work. He handed back the camera. I'm a paramedic who builds furniture on weekends. We contain multitudes. Right. We started meeting for coffee before his shifts. He taught me about controlled burns and forest management while I explained corporate messaging strategies. He never once asked about my family. Money didn't even seem to notice the designer purse I still carried out of habit. When I finally mentioned Hawthorne Ridge Club, he just said, "Sounds fancy. Do they have good food at least 6 months in?" I made the mistake of inviting him to meet Mother during her surprise inspection visit. She'd announced her arrival with 12 hours' notice, forcing me to frantically hide evidence of my actual life, the second-hand furniture I'd grown to love, the photographs I'd been taking of Denver's forgotten corners, the happiness I hadn't asked permission to feel. The dinner at Elway's Steakhouse was a massacre disguised as small talk. Alvarez. Mother tested the name like checking for poison. Mexican, third-generation American. Mateo replied evenly. My grandfather was from El Salvador. How interesting. And you fight fires? Paramedic, primarily. But yes, fire department. Public service? How noble. She said noble the way someone might say contagious. And where did you attend university? Community college for my EMT certification, then paramedic training through the department. Mother's smile could have etched glass. Aaron went to Columbia, but I suppose opposites attract. Temporarily. Mateo set down his fork with deliberate quiet. I save lives. Mrs. Prescott. Last week, I kept a 7-year-old's heart beating until we reached the hospital. Her parents didn't ask where I went to college. How dramatic. Though I imagine the pay isn't much for such heroics. Enough to live honestly. Honestly doesn't pay for private schools or proper homes. Depends on your definition of proper. After he left politely, without making a scene, Mother turned to me with triumph, poorly disguised as concern. He's beneath you, darling. Surely you see that. Imagine introducing him at the club. Imagine your children, struggling with cultural confusion. He's a good man. Good doesn't equal suitable. Don't make me watch you throw away everything we've built for some working-class fantasy. If you insist on this, liaison. Don't bother coming home for holidays. I won't have you embarrassing the family. 3 months later, Mateo proposed beside Bear Creek Lake. No fancy restaurant, no photographer, just us in the mountains, and a ring his grandmother had left him. I said yes before he finished asking. We married at sunrise with 8 people present: his sister and brother-in-law, 3 firefighter friends, my one true friend from college, and a photographer we'd met hiking. I wore a simple dress from a vintage shop and carried wildflowers we'd picked that morning. When Mateo lifted my veil, his hands trembled slightly, the only time I'd seen them unsteady. "You sure about this?" he whispered. "About choosing this over everything else?" "This is everything else," I told him, and meant it. The ring stayed on my finger for exactly 3 days before reality intruded. Mother calling about Thanksgiving plans, assuming I'd come alone. I slipped the band onto a chain around my neck, the metal warm against my chest like a secret heartbeat. Mateo watched me hide it without saying a word, just pulled me close and whispered, "It doesn't change what's true." But after 3 years of hiding what was true, I was beginning to suffocate under the weight of my own cowardice. 3 years of double lives requires logistics that would exhaust a spy. I maintained a decoy apartment downtown, a sterile 1-bedroom that looked like a furniture catalog had vomited beige ambition. Mother had visited twice, each time leaving notes about improvements that would make it more suitable for entertaining the right people. Meanwhile, our actual home in Park Hill breathed with real life. Mateo had restored the 1940s bungalow himself, every tile, every cabinet pull chosen together during weekend trips to salvage yards. Our neighbor, Mrs. Rodriguez, taught me to grow tomatoes in the backyard. Her grandson played saxophone on Thursday evenings while we grilled on the tiny patio Mateo built from reclaimed brick. "Your mother called the station," Mateo said one evening, not looking up from the rocking chair he was sanding. "Asked my captain if I had a record." My stomach dropped. "What?" Henderson told her to contact HR if she had concerns, then hung up. His hands never stopped moving. "She's escalating. Aaron." The rumors started appearing like toxic blooms. Mother had weaponized her charity circuit, spreading concern wrapped in sympathy. "Poor Aaron, so focused on career she's forgotten how to date." "I've tried setting her up, but she's impossibly picky." "At her age, maybe we should consider medical intervention. Some women just can't, you know." My cousin Harper, visiting from law school, pulled me aside at a family gathering. "Aunt Valerie's telling everyone you're seeing a fertility specialist. Says that's why you're so defensive about relationships, you're grieving your biological clock." "That's insane. It's working. Grandmother's planning to talk to you about freezing your eggs." I excused myself to vomit in the powder room, fury and humiliation fighting for dominance. Through the door, I heard Mother's voice. "She gets emotional about it. We just have to be patient." The worst part was watching Mateo absorb the impact. He'd find me crying over my laptop at 2 a.m, reading emails from Mother about appropriate men she'd met at the club. "We could just tell them," he'd say, holding me in our kitchen while coffee burned on the stove. "And give her the satisfaction of being right, that I'm the family disappointment who married beneath her station. Is that what you think, that you married beneath yourself? God, no. Mateo. Then why does her opinion matter more than our truth?" I couldn't explain the arithmetic of emotional terrorism, how a mother's love conditioned on performance creates debts that compound interest, how each small rebellion felt like stealing from someone who'd given you life, how guilt metastasizes when you're raised to believe your happiness is less important than family reputation. The breaking point came through my work email. Mother had contacted Northline's CEO through a mutual connection, suggesting I might be ready for a position back east. "Family concerns," she'd written. "We worry about her isolation." My boss called me in, confused. "I thought you were happy here." "I am. My mother is complicated. Look, Aaron, your work is excellent." But if there's family drama that might affect the company. I kept my job, barely. But the message was clear. Mother's reach extended everywhere. She could poison my professional life as easily as my personal one, all while maintaining plausible deniability. That night, Mateo found me in the garden, yanking weeds with unnecessary violence. My shift partner's wife is a lawyer, he said carefully. Specializes in harassment cases. She's my mother. She's strangling you. Us. He knelt beside me, stilling my frantic hands. Baby, you're disappearing. Even here, in our home. You're half gone. He was right. I'd started checking windows before wearing my ring inside. Started cleaning obsessively before his friends visited. Worried someone might photograph our life and somehow it would reach her. I'd developed facial tics from the constant anxiety of being discovered. After the Miller fire, Mateo continued, when we lost 2 kids, I learned something. Smoke kills before flames do. People die from what they can't see coming. He touched my face, thumb gentle on my cheek. She's smoke, Aaron, and you're suffocating. That weekend, I documented everything. 3 years of emails, texts, voicemails. Harper helped me organize them legally, her law training finally useful. This is a pattern of harassment, she said, screenshot after screenshot building the case. You could get a restraining order. I don't want lawyers. I paused, understanding crystallizing. I want her to face consequences in the only currency she values, which is public reputation, the same weapon she's used against me. Harper smiled slowly. Now you're thinking like a lawyer. But I was thinking like a daughter who'd finally understood that sometimes love means teaching someone that actions have consequences, even especially when that someone is your mother. The invitation to the Hawthorne Ridge Summer Gala arrived the next week, addressed to Miss Erin Walker and guest. Inside, Mother's handwritten note. This year's theme is second chances. I thought it appropriate, given your situation. Don't disappoint me. I looked at Mateo across our kitchen table, the invitation between us like a gauntlet thrown. I'm done running, I said. He reached across, took my hand, the one wearing my hidden ring. Then let's stop. The second chances theme wasn't subtle. Mother had transformed the Hawthorne Ridge Club ballroom into what looked like a wedding reception for someone who'd never shown up white roses everywhere, champagne towers, even a chocolate fountain that seemed aggressively optimistic. The invitation subtext screamed last chance for my defective daughter. I'd flown in that morning, leaving Mateo in Denver despite his protests. I should be there, he'd said, watching me pack the navy cocktail dress Mother had pre-approved via text. Not yet. This needs to happen a specific way. The cocktail hour was a carefully orchestrated humiliation. Mother had stationed her lieutenants, the club women who lunched on gossip and Xanax at strategic points, to ensure I couldn't escape the narrative. Aaron, your mother mentioned you're trying some new treatments. Mrs. Whitmore's voice carried across 3 conversation clusters. So brave, dealing with fertility issues alone. Actually, I'm not. The dating auction is such fun, interrupted Patricia Ashford, Mother's tennis partner. Your mother donated a consultation with her matchmaker as one of the prizes. Isn't that thoughtful? The auction? Of course. Nothing said my daughter's a failure quite like literally auctioning off dates with successful singles. The banner read, Bid for Love, Second Chances for Distinguished Singles. Beneath it, a display featured photos of the participating singles, all successful, all searching, all strategically placed to highlight that at 36. I was the oldest woman in the lineup. My photo wasn't there, but the omission felt louder than inclusion. The message was clear, not even worth auctioning. There's still time to participate. Mother materialized beside me, her St. John suit immaculate as always. Harrison Blackwell asked specifically if you'd be involved. Harrison Blackwell, who tried to grope me at dinner. Don't be dramatic. He's worth $40 million and recently divorced. You could do worse. She paused. You have done worse, apparently. Given your stubborn singleness, the rage tasted metallic. Mother, I've been patient. Aaron, 3 years of this Denver experiment. But even I have limits. She gestured to the room. Everyone here wants to help. The Vanderhilts know an excellent therapist who specializes in commitment issues. The Blackwells have a nephew at Goldman Sachs. Yet you insist on this. Isolation. It's not isolation. It's independence. Independence. She laughed, sharp as winter air. Is that what you call hiding in that mountain town? Doing work beneath your education. Refusing every opportunity I create. Your father would be ashamed. That was new weaponizing Dad. My hands shook as I reached for champagne I didn't want. Speaking of work, she continued, I heard about your little promotion crisis. How unfortunate that the CEO discovered your instability. You contacted my employer. I expressed concern, as any mother would. She adjusted my necklace with proprietorial fingers. Lucky for you, I've arranged an interview with Pemberton Communications here in New York. Monday at 10. They're expecting you. I'm not interviewing. You are. Because your trust fund requires my signature for another 2 years, and I'm tired of subsidizing your tantrum. She smiled at passing guests, then dropped her voice. Come home, Aaron. Stop this nonsense. Marcus Pemberton's son just returned from London freshly divorced, needs a rebound. You could be engaged by Christmas. The quartet started playing, saving me from responding. But Mother wasn't finished. She'd scheduled her birthday toast, though her birthday was 3 months away right after the auction results. Maximum audience for her martyrdom. Harper found me on the terrace at 9:45, gasping into the humid night. She's telling everyone you had a breakdown in Denver, my cousin reported. Says that's why you've been antisocial. Of course she is. Aaron. Harper pulled out her phone, showing me an email. She contacted my law firm too, suggested I was enabling your delusions by visiting Denver. The final straw wasn't even heavy, just one more piece of proof that Mother would destroy anyone who supported my autonomy. She'd isolated me professionally, socially, and now was targeting the one family member who still saw me as human. Inside, the auction was concluding. Mother had taken the microphone, diamonds catching the light like weaponized stars. Before we announce winners, I want to thank everyone for supporting this cause, as someone with an unmarried daughter at 36. Pause for sympathetic murmurs. I understand the importance of second chances. We never know what prevents people from finding love. Fear, career obsession, or sometimes, she looked directly at me, an inability to accept help from those who love them most. The room turned to stare. 200 pairs of eyes dissecting my failure to meet specifications. But tonight isn't about sadness, Mother continued. It's about hope. Hope that even the most stubborn hearts might open to possibility. Speaking of which, where's my daughter Erin? Come up here. The crowd parted like I was contagious. Each step toward that stage felt like walking to an execution. Mother hugged me for the audience, whispering in my ear, Smile, the Pembertons are watching. Everyone, my beautiful, accomplished daughter, still single, still searching. But we never give up hope. Do we? The laughter was meant to be warm, but felt like ice picks. I stood there, specimen on display, while Mother orchestrated my humiliation with conductor's precision. That's when I saw the AV tech adjusting the projection screen for Mother's tribute video, my video, the one I'd submitted through Pine and Frame Studios, disguised as the vendor's standard tribute package. My phone buzzed. Mateo. Just landed. Harper picked me up. We're 10 minutes out. Don't let her win. I wasn't letting her win. I was about to flip the entire board. Thank you all, I managed, taking the microphone before Mother could stop me. Since we're celebrating second chances and Mom's birthday, I've arranged a special tribute video. Should we watch it now? The room applauded. Mother preened, unaware she'd just lit her own fuse. The lights dimmed, the screen illuminated, and I slipped my hand into my pocket, fingers finding the ring that was about to change everything. The plan had taken 2 months to engineer, requiring skills I'd never listed on my resume: subterfuge, digital editing, and the kind of patient fury that burns cold. First, I'd incorporated Eastfield Creative, LLC in Delaware, a legitimate media production company with one client and one purpose. The paperwork was flawless, Harper ensuring every document could withstand scrutiny. The company specialized in event documentation and legacy preservation, corporate speak for controlling the narrative. The Hawthorne Ridge Club accepted corporate sponsorships for their galas, tax write-offs disguised as charity. For $15,000, Eastfield Creative became the exclusive digital media sponsor for the summer gala, with full rights to provide and approve all video content. The contract, buried in 40 pages of legalese, granted me editorial control over any projected media during the event. Mother never reviewed vendor contracts that was beneath a club president. She delegated it to the event's coordinator, who was grateful someone else was handling the technical aspects. When Pine and Frame Studios, my hired contractors, showed up for planning meetings, they presented as thorough professionals documenting the club's charitable work. "We'll need some personal footage of Mrs. Prescott," the videographer had suggested during a planning session. "Family photos, maybe some candid moments showing her leadership." Mother had granted full access to her digital archives, even providing voice recordings of her inspirational messages to club members. She'd been so eager to be celebrated, she never questioned why the release forms were so comprehensive. The technical execution required precision. I'd hired a documentary editor from Boulder, someone with no connection to New York society. Together, we'd crafted 2 versions of the tribute video, one that Mother expected, another that told the truth. The real challenge was evidence gathering without triggering suspicion. I'd installed call recording software on my phone legal in Colorado, where I received the calls. Every voicemail Mother left was automatically backed up to multiple clouds. Harper had helped subpoena my own email records, creating a legal paper trail of Mother's interference with my employment. But the masterstroke was simpler. I'd asked Mother to write a letter for my therapy, something my fictional therapist had suggested about expressing our feelings. She'd sent 3 pages of disappointment dressed as concern, including the line, "If you insist on marrying beneath our family's standards, don't expect my blessing or presence." She'd signed it, notarized it, even, thinking it was for medical records. The video itself was an artwork of juxtaposition. I'd studied every propaganda technique, every documentary method for revealing truth through contrast. The first half, exactly 4 minutes, showed Mother's charitable work, her leadership, her public face, warm music, soft focus, testimonials from grateful beneficiaries. She would be lulled into security. The transition would be seamless. The music would shift not dramatically, just a minor key change that created unease. Then my face would appear, filmed in our Denver home with morning light making everything honest. "Family means different things to different people," my recorded voice would begin. "For some, it means control. For others, freedom to become ourselves." The video would show my real-life Mateo teaching neighborhood kids to check bike brakes, our garden producing vegetables we donated to the food bank, the photography exhibition I'd organized for local artists. Nothing glamorous. Everything real. Then the evidence, presented without sensationalism. Screenshots of emails where Mother threatened my employment. The voicemail where she called Mateo ethnic trash. The notarized letter, each piece appearing just long enough to read, accompanied by my calm narration about choosing love over fear. The climax would be our wedding video, just 30 seconds of joy. Mateo lifting my veil, his grandmother's ring catching sunrise light, our friends cheering as we kissed beside Bear Creek Lake. The image would freeze on our clasped hands, rings visible. Final frame, respect is the foundation of family. Tonight, I choose truth. The USB drive containing this video was already in the AV system, labeled identically to the approved version. The tech team had tested it during rehearsal with the safe version. The switch happened during cocktail hour, when I'd chatted with the AV coordinator about technical difficulties and helped him verify the correct file. I'd also prepared for contingencies. If Mother tried to stop the video, I'd invoke the sponsorship contract Eastfield Creative's legal right to present their content. If she claimed defamation, everything in the video was factually true and documented. If she tried to discredit me as unstable, I had 3 therapists' reports confirming my mental health acquired during the breakdown she'd invented. Harper had coached me on the legal implications. Truth is an absolute defense against defamation. She can't sue you for showing what she actually did. I don't want to destroy her, I'd told Harper during our final preparation. I want her to understand consequences. Sometimes those are the same thing, Harper had replied. The plan's final element was Mateo's arrival. He'd stay outside until the video started, then enter during the revelation not as surprise theater, but as support. We'd discussed it endlessly, his concerns about me facing this alone versus the impact of his presence. "You sure you want to burn this bridge?" he'd asked the night before I flew to New York. "It's already burning. I'm just choosing where the flames go." Now, standing in that ballroom with 200 people waiting for Mother's tribute, I felt the weight of 3 years of hidden marriage pressing against my ribs. The ring in my pocket seemed to pulse with its own heartbeat. The AV coordinator nodded at me, ready to start. Mother stood beside me, radiating satisfaction at her supposed victory. In 90 seconds, everything would change. The USB drive contained more than a video. It held my Declaration of Independence, formatted in pixels and uploaded at high resolution. I smiled at Mother, genuine for the first time all evening. She had no idea that her tribute video was actually her reckoning, that her daughter had learned to use her own weapons against her, that somewhere in the crowd, my husband was walking through the doors she'd tried to close. The lights dimmed completely. The screen blazed to life. My revolution began with the press of a button. The ballroom fell silent as the screen illuminated. Mother's face appeared first professional footage from last year's charity drive, her practiced smile warming the room. The audience relaxed into appreciation. Someone murmured, "Lovely," as images of Mother cutting ribbons and presenting checks dissolved into each other with elegant precision. Valerie Prescott, the narrator's professional voice intoned, has dedicated 20 years to community service through the Hawthorne Ridge Club. Mother squeezed my shoulder, mistaking my tension for emotion. Around us, 200 faces watched with the passive contentment of people expecting exactly what they'd been promised. The music shifted at minute 4, subtle, just strings dropping to minor key. The screen faded to black for 2 seconds. 3. Then my face appeared, sitting in our Denver kitchen, morning light making everything uncomfortably real. Family means different things to different people. My recorded voice filled the ballroom. For some, it means control disguised as love. For others, it means freedom to become ourselves. Mother's hand tightened on my shoulder. "What is this?" The screen showed our Denver life Mateo teaching CPR to teenagers at the community center. Our neighbor Mrs. Rodriguez hugging me at her grandson's quinceañera. My photography exhibition at the local library. Simple moments, but the contrast to the ballroom's opulence was stark. 3 years ago, my voice continued over images, I made a choice that my mother couldn't accept. Not because it was wrong, but because it was mine. The first email screenshot appeared. Mother's words filled the screen. "No daughter of mine will marry Hispanic trash. Choose him or choose family." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Mother lunged for the AV booth, but the coordinator, confused, kept the video running. "It's the approved content, Mrs. Prescott." The voicemail played next. Mother's voice, unmistakable. "Don't bother coming home for Christmas if you're still playing house with that paramedic. I'll tell everyone you're in rehab." More dignified than the truth. Patricia Ashford audibly choked on her champagne. The Vanderhilts exchanged glances. The room's energy shifted from confusion to horror, the delicious kind that would feed gossip for months. Then came the wedding footage. Bear Creek Lake at sunrise. Gold light making everything luminous. Mateo lifting my veil with hands that save lives. The exchange of rings, his grandmother's diamond, my grandfather's band. Our kiss reflected in still water while 8 people who actually loved us cheered. I've been married for 3 years. My recorded voice stated simply, hiding it not from shame, but from exhaustion. Tonight, that ends. The screen showed one final image, Mateo and me at our kitchen table, wedding rings clearly visible, looking directly at the camera. Mom, my recorded self said, respect is the foundation of family. I choose truth. I choose love. I choose Mateo. The video ended with legal text, presented by Eastfield Creative, LLC, all content verified and documented. The lights rose slowly, revealing a tableau of frozen faces. Mother stood statue still, her face cycling through emotions like a broken slot machine. Disbelief, rage, humiliation, back to disbelief. I pulled the ring from my pocket, slipping it onto my finger in full view of everyone. The diamond caught the chandelier light, sending small rainbows across Mother's shoes. I'm not single, I said into the microphone, my real voice stronger than the recorded one. I've been married since January 15th, 3 years ago. His name is Mateo Alvarez. He's a paramedic with Denver Fire, and last month he saved 3 people from a highway pileup. The ballroom doors opened. Mateo walked in wearing his only suit, not designer, but it fit him perfectly. He moved through the crowd with the same calm he brought to emergency scenes, stopping beside me. This is my husband, I announced. He builds furniture, grows vegetables, and makes me laugh every single day. He's worth more than everyone in this room combined, just in different currency. Mother finally found her voice. How dare you? How dare I? What tell the truth? Show these people who you really are when your image isn't at stake. I turned to address the room. She contacted my employer to sabotage my promotion. She spread rumors about my fertility. She tried to have my husband investigated by his department. You're sick, Mother hissed, grabbing for the microphone. You need help. I have help. I have Mateo. I have friends who don't require pedigrees. I have a life you never bothered to know because it didn't match your blueprint. Harrison Blackwell III stood up, cocaine confidence intact. This is inappropriate. Sit down, Harrison. I cut him off. We both know what you're actually inappropriate about. The room erupted in whispers. Board members huddled, calculating damage. Mother's lieutenants abandoned formation, self-preservation overriding loyalty. Mrs. Vanderhilt, the club's eldest member, stood slowly. Valerie, is this true? Did you threaten this girl's employment? She doesn't understand. Mother started. I understand perfectly. I interrupted. You loved the idea of a daughter more than the actual daughter, but ideas don't love back. Mateo stepped forward then, his presence commanding attention without trying. Mrs. Prescott, I've watched your daughter cry herself to sleep over your words. I've held her through panic attacks before family visits. The woman you call a disappointment runs the entire communications department, volunteers at literacy programs, and still sends you Mother's Day cards you don't deserve. His voice never rose, but something in its certainty made people lean forward. You asked about my qualifications once. Here they are. I love your daughter without conditions. I support her dreams without requiring approval. I see her not as an extension of family reputation, but as Erin. Just Erin. And that's enough. She's always been enough. The silence stretched taut. Then, from the back, slow clapping. Harper, my cousin the law student, building to applause. 2 others joined, then 5. Not everyone, not even most, but enough to make a point. Mother looked around her kingdom, watching it fracture in real time. The careful architecture of her social position, built on commanding respect through fear, couldn't withstand this much truth at once. If you leave now, she said low, venomous, never come back. I looked at my hand, wedding ring catching light, then at Mateo, solid and sure beside me. Okay, I said simply. Deal. We walked out together, leaving Mother in her spotlit moment, surrounded by people who would smile at her tomorrow while whispering behind raised hands. The greatest punishment I could give her, forcing her to live with the image she'd actually earned. The whispers started before we reached the door. Board members huddling, calculating whether Mother's reign had just ended. Mrs. Vanderhilt's voice cut through. An emergency board meeting seems necessary, don't you think? Mother tried to grab the microphone again, her voice shrill. This is entrapment. She manipulated. Actually, Harper stood up, law school confidence on full display. Everything presented was factually documented. I reviewed the materials myself. Truth is an absolute defense. Aunt Valerie. I stopped at the doorway, Mateo's hand steady in mine, and turned back to face the room one last time. The microphone was still live, carrying my voice clearly. Before I leave, let me be clear about something. I'm not destroying my mother. She's accomplished that herself. But I am setting terms. Mother started toward me, but two board members subtly blocked her path. The power dynamics were already shifting. First, I continued, the Eastfield Creative sponsorship for next year's gala comes with conditions. The $15,000 donation will fund a new program support services for women navigating family pressure around life choices. No marriage requirements, no age limits, no judgment. Patricia Ashford actually nodded. Several younger women in the crowd leaned forward. Second, the singles auction ends tonight. It's degrading and archaic. If the club wants Eastfield's continued sponsorship, that's non-negotiable. You can't dictate, Mother sputtered. It's in the sponsorship contract. Harper, would you like to explain the provisions? Harper stood, pulling out her phone. Section 7, subsection 3. Sponsor retains right to specify program parameters for funded activities. Completely enforceable. The murmurs grew louder. Someone mentioned that Eastfield's donation was the largest the gala had received in 5 years. Third, I said, my voice steadier now. Any attempt to contact my employer, my husband's department, or spread false information about either of us will result in immediate legal action. I have 3 years of documentation, all admissible. This is blackmail, Mother hissed. No, it's boundaries. Something you should have learned about years ago. I addressed her directly now, the crowd forgotten. You want to know the saddest part? I would have included you in our life. Mateo would have tried to win you over with Sunday dinners and genuine interest in your opinions. We could have found a middle ground. My voice caught slightly, surprising me. But you couldn't see past your own reflection long enough to notice you had a daughter who just wanted you to be proud of her for who she actually was. The room had gone completely silent. Even the catering staff had stopped moving. I'm done begging for that approval, I continued. And I'm done hiding the best thing that ever happened to me because it doesn't match your aesthetic. Mrs. Whitmore, Mother's supposed ally, spoke up unexpectedly. Valerie, did you really call that young man ethnic trash? Mother's face flushed. It was taken out of context. What context makes that acceptable? Mrs. Whitmore's voice had gone cold. My daughter-in-law is Korean. Should I be concerned about your views? The fractures were spreading. Every uncomfortable comment Mother had ever made was being reevaluated. Every subtle slight remembered. One more thing, I said, pulling out my phone. This is a receipt showing that I've transferred $50,000 to the Denver Food Bank in honor of Gerald Prescott, my father, who would have loved Mateo, who would have walked me down the aisle at Bear Creek Lake, who died thinking his daughter would never be free to choose her own life. My voice strengthened. That's half of what's in my trust fund. The rest will go to programs supporting women escaping controlling families. Mother, you can keep your money. I don't need it anymore. You ungrateful. Grateful. I laughed, surprising myself with its genuineness. Actually, I am grateful. You taught me exactly what kind of mother, wife, and woman I refuse to become. Mateo spoke then, his voice carrying that paramedic authority. We're leaving now. But if anyone here genuinely wants to know Erin, the real Erin, not the version filtered through her mother's expectations, our door is open in Denver. Harper walked over to us, defying the invisible battle lines. I'll take you up on that. Thanksgiving. You'll be disinherited, Mother warned. Harper shrugged. Worth it. Besides, I'm about to pass the bar. I'll manage. Two other cousins stepped forward, quiet Sarah, who'd been hiding her girlfriend for 2 years, cousin Marcus, who'd chosen teaching over banking, small rebellions finding courage in a larger one. This is what you've done, Mother's voice cracked, addressing me. You've destroyed our family. No, I said firmly. I've freed it. Anyone who wants a relationship with me knows where to find me without you as intermediary, without performance reviews, without conditions except mutual respect. I looked around the ballroom one last time at the champagne towers that could fund a food bank for months, at the people who'd watched my humiliation as entertainment, at the stage where Mother had tried to auction off her disappointment in me. For what it's worth, I said to the room, the Hawthorne Ridge Club does important charitable work, but charity starts with how we treat our own families. Maybe remember that at the next gala. Security had arrived, 2 men in blazers looking uncertain about their role. Mother had probably called them, but they seemed unsure who exactly was the disruption. We're going, I told them simply. Peacefully. As we walked through the doors, I heard the meeting erupting behind us, board members demanding explanations. Mother's voice, high and desperate, trying to regain control. The sound of her empire fracturing along lines she'd drawn herself. Harper caught up with us in the parking lot. That was incredible. Probably actionable in 12 different ways. But incredible. Will she sue? Mateo asked. With what grounds everything Erin showed was true? Besides, Harper grinned. Discovery would be brutal for Aunt Valerie. 3 years of emails and texts, she'd never risk it. I pulled off my heels, standing barefoot on the asphalt while the country club blazed with light behind us. Through the windows, I could see the chaos continuing, Mother surrounded but alone, her carefully constructed world collapsing in real time. Any regrets? Mateo asked, pulling me close. I twisted my wedding ring, feeling its weight properly for the first time in 3 years. Just one. What's that? That I didn't do this sooner. Harper laughed. Well, you certainly picked your moment. That video will be everywhere by morning. She was right. The revenge was complete, not in destroying Mother, but in forcing her to live with the consequences of her choices, just as she'd forced me to live with mine. The only difference was, I'd chosen love. She'd chosen control. And tonight, in front of everyone who mattered to her, she'd learned which one was stronger. The valet brought our rental car around nothing fancy, just reliable, like everything in our real life. Harper hugged me tight before we left, whispering, Dad would be so proud. She meant my father, but we both knew she was thinking of her own father too, another gentle soul crushed under the Prescott family weight. As Mateo drove us away from Hawthorne Ridge, I watched the building shrink in the side mirror. Through the glowing windows, I could still see figures moving, the drama continuing without us. My phone buzzed incessantly, messages from family members, club acquaintances, even strangers who'd already heard. I turned it off without reading any of them. You know she'll try to spin this, Mateo said quietly, his hand finding mine across the console. Let her try. I twisted my ring openly, finally wearing it the way it was meant to be worn. Everyone saw the truth tonight. That's all I wanted, for the truth to exist in the same room as her lies. Just once. We drove to our airport hotel in silence, but it wasn't heavy. It was the quiet that comes after a storm passes, when you're checking to see what's still standing. Everything important was intact. Mateo beside me, ring on my finger, truth finally told. In the hotel room, I stood at the window watching planes take off into the night, each one heading somewhere else, carrying people toward or away from their own reckonings. I need to say this. I turned to face Mateo. Thank you for waiting, for letting me do this my way, even when it took 3 years. He pulled me close, his chin resting on my head. You needed to be the one to say it. Otherwise, she'd always have that power, the ability to make you hide. My phone, briefly turned back on to check our flight, showed 17 missed calls from Mother. One text from Harper. Board voted. Mom's under review as president. She left in an Uber, crying. First time I've ever seen her cry. I felt something I didn't expect, not satisfaction, but sadness. Somewhere under all that control and manipulation was a woman who'd never learned that love wasn't something you could manage into existence. Do you think she'll ever understand? I asked Mateo. Probably not, but that's not your weight to carry anymore. The next morning, our flight back to Denver felt like ascending from underwater. Each mile of altitude was easier breathing. The woman next to me noticed my ring and smiled. How long have you been married? 3 years, I said easily, the words finally free in my mouth. 3 wonderful years. When we landed, the mountains were doing that thing where they caught morning light and looked painted against the sky. Mrs. Rodriguez was watering her garden when we pulled up to our house. She waved, calling out, "Welcome home, I saved you some tomatoes." This was home, not the manicured lawns of Westchester, not the crystalline judgment of Hawthorne Ridge. This small house with the squeaky porch board, the mismatched dining chairs Mateo had restored, the walls covered with my photography that Mother would have called amateur. I hung my dress in the closet, the navy one Mother had approved. I'd never wear it again, but I kept it as reminder. Sometimes you need to remember what you escaped to appreciate what you've found. That evening, as Mateo grilled vegetables from our garden and I edited photos from a recent shoot, Harper called. Aftermath report, Mom's trying to blame the video company, but the contract's bulletproof. 3 board members resigned in protest in her favor. But still, the younger members are pushing for reform. Oh, and Harrison Blackwell got arrested for cocaine possession last night. Apparently, your comment made someone tip off the cops about checking his car. I didn't mean you didn't do anything. He did it to himself, just like Aunt Valerie. After dinner, Mateo and I sat on our small back porch, watching the sun set behind the mountains. The ring on my finger caught the light openly, honestly, finally. What now? He asked. Now we live, without hiding, without apology, without asking permission. He kissed my temple. That's all. That's everything. My phone lit up with one final message, not from Mother, but from Sarah, my quiet cousin, inspired by you. I told my parents about Jennifer. They're not happy, but I'm free. Thank you for showing me it was possible. I looked at Mateo, at our small, perfect life, at the mountains standing unchanged by human drama. Mother had asked what was in Denver besides marijuana and fleece vests. The answer was simple, everything that mattered. The sun set completely, and we went inside to the life we'd built together, not impressive by Hawthorne Ridge standards, but real in ways that Club could never understand. I hung our wedding photo on the wall where everyone could see it, right next to my father's watch and Mateo's grandmother's prayer candle. For 3 years, I'd carried my ring like shame. Now it sat on my finger like truth visible, undeniable, and finally free. Mother could keep her club presidency. If she managed to hold on to it, she could keep her reputation, tattered as it was. She could keep every penny of family money. I had something worth more: a husband who saw me clearly, a life built on truth, and the knowledge that love isn't something you control. It's something you choose, every single day. And tonight, in our small Denver home with the squeaky floorboard and the thriving garden, I chose it openly. No more hiding, no more performing. Just love, worn as plainly and proudly as the ring that had waited 3 years to see the light. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I'd love to know where in the world you're listening from. Drop a comment below and let's connect. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts. What would you have done in my situation? Your stories and perspectives mean everything to me.